The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, and thank you for joining our webinar, How to Find and Land the Job You Want. My name is Jessica Schaefer, and I'll be your host today. We are privileged to have Tom Gimbel, founder and CEO of LaSalle Network, with us to share his expertise. LaSalle is a Chicago-based staffing and recruiting firm that specializes in accounting and finance, administrative, call center, human resources, marketing, technology, and executive search. Try saying that 5 times fast. Tom started LaSalle Network nearly 16 years ago when he was only 26, and since then he's become a nationally recognized expert on hiring and job search strategies, and he's been featured on the Today Show, Fox & Friends, CNBC, and in Inc. and Fortune magazine. Tom has interviewed thousands of candidates, and he knows what the job search looks like from both the company and the candidate perspective, and he knows what job search strategies work and what don't. During this webinar, Tom will share what you need to know today to successfully find and land the job that you want.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate the warm introduction. So today, if you are joining us, there will be a recorded version available after the event. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the hashtag #LandTheJob. And as always, follow us at LaSalle Network and my personal Twitter handle at Tom Gimbel. So when I decided to come up with the idea of a webinar for landing a job, there were a lot of different levels that I contemplated doing. And a lot of it came down to the mistakes that people still make. That with the advent of the internet and of Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the different social media and all the different seminars and all the branding your career stuff, that people were still making a lot of the same basic mistakes they've been making for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and I'm sure longer in job interviews. So today, we're going to cover some stuff that you may think is pretty elementary, and at the same time, we're also going to go over stuff that's a little bit more in-depth. But I promise you this, having placed tens of thousands of people in jobs around Chicago and throughout the country, that these are crucial things that can't be overlooked. And when you take any aspect for granted, you will fail. So the agenda for today is we're going to do, starting off with state of the workforce, following up with your resume, then applicant tracking systems, or ATS, social media. The 5th point will be interviews, phone, video, and in-person. And the 6th point will be relationships, personal and professional. Again, hashtag #LandTheJob. The state of the workforce today is 5 million job openings in the United States. There's 2 unemployed people for every job posting. Obviously, you're also competing, if you're unemployed, against people who are currently employed and people who aren't reporting their data as a job search to IDES in Illinois and other unemployment facilitators in other states. So there is so much competition. And the large amount of openings, what does this say about the economy? There is a lot of opportunity, but there are also people looking for jobs. The question is, how can you take advantage of the situation? Looking at your resume. It is your calling card. It doesn't make a difference if you're an IT professional, sales, marketing, what have you. Your resume has to have no errors, no typos. It has to be clean. It has to be concise. And these are my opinions. You're going to say, oh, you've always done it a certain way and you've gotten jobs. I wish you nothing but the best in this. What I am stating in my points on this webinar today is, on the average, where you should allocate your time and how you should go about things to increase the odds in your favor. Include a summary. Get rid of the objective. An objective can be so specific that it limits you when it gets shared. So you are applying to a healthcare company and you say, my objective is to be part of a progressive healthcare organization, and they forward it to a friend of theirs, or even worse, you submit it and forget to change your objective, and all of a sudden, delete button is pushed. Include a summary. Don't over-embellish it, but have a summary about who you are, what you want, what you've accomplished. And actually, I just made a verbal typo, so let me repeat that. eliminate what you want and really focus on who you are and what you've done. That is the most important thing, what you have accomplished. Use bullet points in your resume. If you are a paragraph typer, get rid of it. People want to see bullet points. They want them to be to the point. They want them to be, pun intended, they want it to be articulate, and they want to make sure that the points that you are making jump out. In a paragraph format of a resume, nothing sticks out. Quantifiable achievements. You've got to use numbers. Whether you save the company money, whether you did large procurement projects, whether you had sales effect, whether marketing, human resources, what percentages of attrition increased or decreased as a result of programs you implemented. You've got to have quantifiable numbers. And you need to be careful when you're doing this with fonts and spacing. And when you're putting numbers in, do you type them? Do you type out the words of the numbers? Do you have percentages? Make sure you have consistency, and spacing is key. So what you want to do with your resume is send it via email to several different friends or coworkers if they're in on your secret that you're looking, or family members, and make sure that they open it and how it reads electronically for them. Send it to a Mac, send it to a Gmail, send it to a company email, and see how they open and see how the formatting is when they open it. Very, very crucial. And I'll tell you, very few people do this, and so many of the resumes I see have formatting errors. And arguably the most important thing on the resume is don't lie. And I say arguably because you can get a resume with get an interview off a resume filled with lies. So it's not the most, but once you get that interview, you're going to get nailed. A lot of times you get nailed. And if you have a feeling that you need to lie, then you need to really get with a career coach and figure out how you're going to overcompensate for the reasons that you felt the need to lie to begin with. Were you a job hopper? Did you not do as well as you think you should have, so you're inflating the numbers? But it'll come out, and interviewers are just as progressive as job seekers are. They are watching webinars on how to interview people. They are reading books on how to interview people. They are probing on numbers to make sure that there's validation behind the facts. So please, 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 I encourage you, don't lie. It's not worth the long-term trouble. Let's move into something you may not be as familiar with, and that is applicant tracking systems. What are they, and why are they important? And the majority of companies, large companies, I don't know of a large company, a large cap company, a Fortune 1000 company that doesn't have an applicant tracking system, and more companies that are even north of $500 million and definitely north of $1 billion in revenue have an ATS. An applicant tracking system is a software application that enables the electronic handling of recruitment needs. And what that is applications, resumes, cover letters. It stores all this. It's a database. And it can be accessed through the company's website. Now, your resume is going to go in there. You're not even going to know it. And it's going to automatically, if companies have these ATSs, spit out a letter to you saying your resume was received. The question is, what does the ATS do beyond being a database? 76% of job seekers use companies' career websites. And this is data from 2014, so it's not old data. I'm surprised that number isn't even higher. But yet ATS can lead, using an ATS, which companies do, can lead to 48% of applicants dropping out of the process, right? Both voluntarily and involuntarily. So don't get fancy. When you put a picture on your resume, when you use giant cursive fonts or a monogram at the top, when you're trying to be creative and stand out, it gets killed in the ATS. It scans the information and it formats it in different ways. So if any of you have used a database or a CRM and you know that when you put information in, you scan it versus data entering it, it comes in differently sometimes. So make sure that you don't try to overcomplicate things by being overly creative. A resume is purely a calling card, and your job is to get an interview. You will get the job based on who you are, not what your resume is. Keywords. Read the job descriptions. Read the buzz. Read the Twitter posts and Facebook posts from the companies you're interviewing with. See what the buzzwords are for their positions. And when you have that, then you can put those into your bullet points and make it more applicable to your resume, because a lot of the ATSs are built to screen the resumes for keywords that match up with the job description. And you want to have as much of the key information on one page of your resume as possible. Now you're going to tell me you've been working for 25 years, you've had 5 jobs. I get it. I get it. But you want to have as much of it as you can when you're submitting it electronically through this, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Technology is great. Sometimes there's flaws, and make sure you have it. Make sure you have the correct name for your college, too. Don't use abbreviations. Have the college out there, and make sure you have a year next to it. You might say you don't want to do that for discrimination issues, and I get that, but sometimes if you have a date, it can screw up the scanning of information in the ATS, and you want to make sure that it gets your college and the year, and it's pushed through the system accurately. Little things. You don't have to do it, but you want to make sure that it shows and that you have a BS or a BA and a master's degree as well. So let's move in. We said that you can find out the buzzwords through social media on the company. Social media and hiring. Do you use social networking to research candidates? 43% of companies say they do. So when you're landing the job, you have to realize that social media is a two-way street. So to land the job, you've got to make sure that your social media accounts are accurate, professional, and up to date, because people are going to be viewing you even if you are not putting it on your resume. Don't fall into the trap. Don't spend too much time on Twitter and Facebook. It will have you focusing on the wrong things. I get it. People are out there talking about your personal brand. At the end of the day, what managers want are for people who will execute the company brand, the department brand, the division brand. And when you do those things, your brand gets expanded, especially earlier in your career. Do not focus so much on your brand and creating content. There's certain people in certain marketing roles or human resources roles or sales roles where they've been charged with being brand ambassadors, where they're charged with knowing the industry. But if you're going to go out there and just try to create your own content, you are going to get in trouble because you're putting too much out there that you're not. It's humanly impossible to be constantly putting your own original content out on Twitter and LinkedIn. And it will start to discourage people that if you're linked into somebody or somebody's following you on Twitter or you're following somebody else on Twitter and you're continually putting their handle on your posts of original content, you're going to start pushing people too far, and they're going to be turned off by you. Remember, you're competing against a lot of other people, and it's one thing to want to be viewed as intelligent and involved and active, and another to try to come across as the smartest person in the room and the expert on everything social media-wise. Social media can give you insight into things quickly if you use it effectively. Okay? And so what you have to do when you're using social media is to make sure that you're following the right companies and the right people, and you're gathering information. Really use it as an information gathering tool rather than trying to wake up and be in every single person's cereal bowl that they're seeing your name all over the place. That's not as important as the information you can gather. And being confrontational with people who haven't hired you, more or less even if they have hired you, but especially if they haven't hired you, to be confrontational or to always agree with them on their tweets, it doesn't necessarily curry favor. So you've got to make sure that you're handling things the right way. The number one social media is LinkedIn. And it really should be, I don't know what the right terminology, whether it should be business media or professional database, is really what it is versus a social media. And we've actually seen if there's been any negative whiplash or feedback on LinkedIn, it's that people are starting to use it too socially and not enough for LinkedIn. I was reading an article the other day that people have now started to try to sell their extra sporting event tickets and trying to push people to come to events all the time via LinkedIn versus having it be a career-focused, resume-focused, business-focused from a content-driven database. So 94% of companies are using it for recruiting. They're either A, paying to post ads, B, using it to do research on competitors and contacts and candidates, or C, just plain simple looking at your LinkedIn bio before you come in or after you come in for an interview. and which falls into 92% of companies are using it to screen candidates. And they're also comparing your resume to the actual LinkedIn profile to see if there's any discrepancies between the two. So make sure that you are not lying in either your resume or your LinkedIn profile, and that they mesh, right? And the problem is your LinkedIn profile is public for everyone to see. So if you're omitting jobs that you were at because you left on bad terms, it's going to come back and bite you. So on this next slide, social media and LinkedIn, keywords. People can do keyword search in LinkedIn, keyword searches in LinkedIn. So make sure that you have, if you were using Oracle or SAP, that's in your resume. Make sure that if you were using it, you actually used it, and that way when people call on you, you're not going to be lying about it. But if things like that, you want to make sure you get into, if you're in marketing, SEO, search engine optimization. If you're in accounting and you're using GAAP, right, generally accepted accounting principles, you want to put those things in there. A professional photo. Now, I'm a little bit of a stickler. I'm an old-fashioned guy, but I still believe that having a photo of you at a bar with your dog with a beer isn't the best for this. You can't go wrong with a good photo, good headshot from the waist up, what have you, of who you are. There's some people that haven't wanted to put them on because they fear of age discrimination. You know, I'm a 43-year-old male, and my perception on that is we are who we are. Let's be proud of who we are, and let's have a resume that backs up the skills and abilities that we have. Ask for recommendations, but sparingly. Again, another negative whiplash of LinkedIn is people that have 30 or 40 recommendations. What ends up, what it looks like the hiring managers are, you're fishing for compliments from your coworkers and people in order to build up your profile versus recommendations of people that voluntarily want to say good things about you. And a phone reference is always better than a typed letter you bring with you, going back 10 or 15 years. And it's the same thing with this. A few references that really, of somebody who really worked with you and can make comments about what your actual contributions were in certain areas is great. Having 50 people that liked you from a company, you know, I'll give you a reference, you give me a reference. It doesn't do as much as you think it does. Articles. Beware. Read the articles. I've seen a lot of people that, or I've talked to a lot of people that comment on articles and like articles that they didn't read. They just like the title. And a lot of times the body of the article is different than the title. Be wary. Don't just publish things just to publish them. If you actually like them, that's different, and that's content. But if you're spending all of your time on LinkedIn posting articles and content, people are going to wonder, why aren't you doing your job? Join groups and follow companies. The two aspects of LinkedIn that I think aren't used enough, and that is join or follow companies that are interesting to you, that are in your space, that are in industries that you want to get into, and see what they're doing. And join groups. Study it. It's a database. Use it for information. Again, stay away from my personal brand. I just want to get me out there. Take more interest in the other people on there than you do in yourself. 54% of companies use Facebook for recruiting. Again, this number is almost half of what it is for LinkedIn, so realize where you're allocating your time. But what they will do on Facebook, a lot of companies, is they'll go in and they'll check your profile just to see who you're friends with, to see if you're stupid with what you post in your pictures. And I don't mean to be crude or make anybody laugh. I'm being candid. And if you're going to have a Facebook profile and you're also looking for a job, you may consider making it private. You may say it's not fair. Life isn't fair. You can voice a million different frustrations and opinions. The fact of the matter is companies use it for screening candidates. And you have to be careful of what you put on there. Fill out your professional history. Say where you're working. Use your network. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of friends. Are they really your friends? If they are, look at where they work. Learn to utilize the resources you have. Learn about companies' cultures. The majority of companies that are of substantial size have a company Facebook page. Don't be fooled by it. I think they're great. My own company has one. We put up fun pictures. We do a lot of fun things. I think they're terrific to advertise it and market it that way. At the same time, we work really, really hard. And you may want to go work at a company because they do great incentive trips or they have great perks, but if the work stinks, if you're not happy with what you're doing, it's not a good job. Remember, a 2-for-1 sale isn't any good if you don't need what you're buying. Right? Focus on the things that are important, and the other things are icing on the cake. Unless you're an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old like my son, and then you just eat the icing and not the cake, but that's for a whole other conversation. 39% of companies use Twitter for recruiting. 31% of it use it for screening candidates. A high percentage of candidates, we don't have these numbers, use it to screen companies. So you should follow companies on Twitter. You should see what they put out. You should read their information. If they're publicly traded, it's an easy way to get their earnings and profitability and not having to go to their website and search for the page. A lot of companies will put it out there. You'll find people on Twitter who work for the company and see what they post. Again, just because they go and post social things doesn't mean you should. You're trying to get a job with these companies. Be smart about how you use Twitter. Be personal, be professional. Engage in your industry. Join the conversation, but if you don't have anything to add, just follow it and take information. And look for the jobs. Look for the jobs. I know several people that have gotten jobs that they first found advertised on Twitter. Now, the fact of the matter is a lot of the jobs that are being pushed out on Twitter are also being pushed out on Career Builder and Monster and Dice and Indeed, and they're in other places, and they're on the company's website. So this isn't like a unique place. It's just what Twitter is, right? 140 characters or less and a quick way to view something that comes at you instantaneously. So now, really one of my favorite parts of the process of what we're doing on the webinar is the interview. You got it. Now don't screw it up. Get there early. There is no excuse to get to an interview late. Oh, I was in a car accident. Well, when did you leave? Usually car accident, you're in a rush. Something happens. I get it, Tom. You don't understand. People hit me. I get it. I get it. I leave really, really early for really, really important meetings. And if you want a job, there's no more important meeting. Get there 2 hours early. Go get a cup of coffee. Sit down. Relax. Calm your nerves. If you're running there from your own job, allocate enough time with your current employer that you're able to get out of there. But if you're running and if you're trying to catch a cab and, if it's snowing out, if you know the weather's bad, leave early. Leave early. Research the job. This is not 1990 where you have to go to the library and pull up microfiche to find information on a company. The Internet is accessible to all of us for free if you don't have a computer or a phone, and instantaneously on our smartphones. You can find out through LinkedIn, Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever your search engine of choice is, Twitter, the company websites. There's no reason that in your portfolio that you go to the interview with to take notes that you shouldn't have pages of their website printed out, the bios of the people. If you know you're meeting with somebody and you have their name specifically, you should have their LinkedIn profile. You should have looked at it, where they worked, how long they've been there. Those are important things. There is absolutely no reason to have not done research. Take notes. My favorite thing to do is to go into a meeting and ask, is it okay if I take notes during this conversation? You've shown courtesy, and you're polite, and you've asked them for permission to do something that's a very basic thing, and then by taking notes on certain things, you're going to remember more information. Don't take notes on silly things. Really pay attention and take notes. Okay? And you should have questions that you've gotten from their LinkedIn or from the website written down, and when they ask if you have any questions, you should have them. Be ready to discuss your accomplishments. What have you done? The numbers we talked about. Where did you rank? If you're an accountant and you're interviewing for a job, how many other accountants were in your group? How did they decide who got what projects? What were your reviews? Relationships with your boss. Did you have a good one? If you quit, got fired, why? But it's got to be the relationship with your boss. Are you easy to manage is what people are looking to know. Reason for looking. Were you fired? Were you laid off? I got feelings on this, folks, and you may not like them. But if you worked in a department where there were 5 or 10 or even 2 people doing the same job that you were doing and you were laid off, you were fired because they picked the other person over you. And there's always a reason. Maybe your boss liked you and wanted to give you a good severance package and they got you out. Terrific. That's great. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But on average, if someone stayed and you left, it says something. So be confident in that. Explain the situation. Why did they keep that person? What were your strong skills and attributes? Compensation, it's not a taboo. Work and employment is a trust relationship. It should be win-win. You're going in to interview with somebody, don't be afraid to tell them what you were making. And they can't be afraid to make you an offer. And you can't be afraid to turn it down or accept it if it's not what you want. But when people say, I don't feel comfortable telling you what I'm making, how would you feel if the potential employer said, well, we don't feel comfortable telling you what the position paid? People pay 2 things, based on what they think the position is worth and based on what somebody's been paid someplace else. That's what the market is. When you go out and buy a used car, you want to know what that car was worth originally and then what the market is and what they've put into it. And I'm not trying to devalue you or commoditize you, but it is what it is. You shouldn't be afraid to say what you were getting paid. And if you felt you were undervalued, you should be able to say that and why. That's a good interview conversation. Work ethic, talk about it. Are you the first one in and the last one to leave? State it and then back it up when you get the job. But the fact of the matter is so many people are talking about and focused on what's my work-life balance and when can I get out. What managers want to hear is, how hard are you willing to work? What are you willing to give me? You're asking someone to invest in you. You've got to be willing to invest in yourself and the career. The phone interview. I'm not a big fan of them, but it is definitely a more efficient way to get through things quickly. But what happens with phone interviews is, quite frankly, subconsciously and consciously, people forget about them, and they realize them 5 minutes before, and they're not in a good place to do it. Mark it on your calendar. It is real. It is a meeting. Use a landline. If they know you're interviewing in your office, use their conference room. If you have a friend that has an office and they'll let you use theirs, use theirs. If you don't have a landline, go to your mom's. Find a landline. But let's say you don't. Let's say you're traveling for business. Apologize in advance that you're using a mobile phone. I apologize. I'm traveling. I'm here. I'm there. I'm in a good location. There's not a lot going on, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. If you're going to use an earpiece, make sure you've tried it out before and make sure people can hear you clearly. Limit the distractions. If you have a dog and you're at home, put the dog away. Give it to the dog walker. Have a friend take it for a walk. If you've got kids and you can't get a babysitter and they're at home, apologize in advance. That you put your baby down for a nap. However, if they wake up and you hear them crying, explain to them why. Do everything in advance. Know the procedure if the call is dropped. Say, if for some reason my cell phone goes out, should I call you back or will you call me back and you have a direct dial? Right? If you handle these things in the beginning, you come across as prepared and you have some vision for what can go on. Speak clearly. A lot of us have the habit of mumbling a little bit, especially when we're talking about things that we're not comfortable with. And bragging, which is what an interview tends to be, isn't something we all feel comfortable with. Speak clearly. Don't mumble. Pay attention to your speed. A lot of times people just worry about talking too fast. I'm telling you, people who talk too slow, it's a bigger turnoff than people who talk too fast because it lulls people to sleep. Talking too fast, people are amazed that you can do it, and they challenge themselves to keep up. I don't recommend it, but if I had to pick too fast or too slow, I'd take too fast. Too slow screams, boring. Have a high energy level. If you need to have a coffee or an energy drink, do it. I'm not telling you to get amped up. I'm telling you to not be lulled, especially if your interview is in the afternoon or at the end of the day. Personally, I recommend doing interviews in the morning. Even if you think you're not a morning person, get going. You're more fresh. You haven't been worn down and beaten down by the day. Now we have a poll question. Have any of you ever done a video interview? either via Skype or via FaceTime. Have any of you ever done one? We'll give it a second here. Let me look up here and see what we got. So 43% yes, 57% no. Okay, so which doesn't surprise me. The numbers are creeping up. I didn't expect it to be over half that had done video interviews, but it's definitely what's going on. So before the call, you're interviewing. They're looking at you, not only at your appearance, but also at what's in the background. Turn off the TV. Number one, you don't want them to be distracted by it. Number two, what if you have the wrong channel up? Just turn it off. Clean it up. If you're interviewing at your kitchen counter or at your desk, make sure in back of you the blinds aren't halfway open and halfway closed and crooked. Make sure that the background of it looks good. Right? You can set your iPhone up or your iPad or your computer and take a still shot photo of it and look at it. But just look. Make sure it's clean. I've done interviews with people, video interviews. Beds have been unmade. Couches have had clothes on the back. TVs and movies have been on, right? Oh, so how do you spend your day? Oh, I'm usually doing my job search most of the day, and there's HBO's on in the background, right? And I'm not saying that people aren't allowed to spend their unemployed time doing whatever they want. The question is, what is the image you are crafting for the people you want to work for? Shower, get dressed. You have an interview. Take it seriously. Make sure that the microphone, if you're FaceTiming or doing a Skype, try it out with somebody else, one of your friends. If you live with a roommate or a sibling or a relative or a parent, they have a computer. You can do it in the same house. Just try it out and make sure that it works, that your connectivity works. Serious stuff. Make sure you're ready. During the call, where to look. You want to practice this with people. You don't want to, there's a camera on it, and then there's the screen. You want to be looking at the camera. Smile, be happy, right? People don't want to hire people who are sourpusses. You want to be happy. You got to practice it. A lot of things in life take practice, and putting the best you forward may take practice. Stay present. Don't let your mind drift. Make sure that what you're looking at, what's behind your iPhone, iPad, computer, that there isn't a lot of activity. Don't be looking out the window. Close the blinds. You want to be focused on the person who's interviewing you. And your pose. Don't slouch. Sit up straight. Lean forward. The same things that you do in a face-to-face you can tell over a video. Be conscious. Be present. Technical issues. Same thing as the phone call, the phone interview. If the video drops, what are you going to do? Who's calling who back? How are we working this thing? If the whole call drops halfway through, are we trying to reconnect it? I'm calling you, you're calling me. And if the call never connects at all. So you want to get a phone number of the person who you're having the phone interview with beforehand if possible. So if the video connect doesn't work, you can call them. Preparation. Everybody likes somebody who's prepared. In-person interviews. Be comfortable. Dress appropriately. If you would have asked me 5, 10 years ago, I would tell you always wear a suit and tie if you're a man. Today, sometimes, depending on the culture of the company, not wearing a tie will not knock you out. It used to be 20 years ago people would wear a crazy tie in order to make an impression. Don't do that stuff. Minimal jewelry, men and women. Jewelry, different people react differently to jewelry. And the fact of the matter is, less is more. No cologne or perfume. Don't do it. I'm telling you, people don't want to, you don't know what offends, you don't know who has allergies. We live in a world that kids can't take peanuts to school. Okay? Be careful on wearing a fragrance into an interview. Blue, gray, white, blue. Right? It should be the corporate flag symbol. Okay? This is what you wear on an interview. Blue, gray, white, blue. People say, what about black? Do what you want. My advice is blue, gray, white, blue. Doesn't mean you can't have color. It doesn't mean if you're more experienced and you have more confidence in your personality, you're going to be sharper. If you're a woman and you have a great red blouse you want to wear with a blue suit. I get it. Everyone's got different styles. But if your friends don't tell you, if you don't consider yourself a business fashion person, then don't step out of the box. You're not going to offend somebody by wearing a white shirt and a blue suit. You're just not. No water bottles. Don't bring your Starbucks coffee. Just don't. Drink it before you go in. Leave it behind. If they offer you coffee or water, take it. You're going to be speaking for a long time. You may get parched, even if you don't think you need water. If they offer it, accept it. It's good to have when you're talking, you get cotton mouth. Pace yourself. You're going to find yourself talking fast. Make sure you listen to what you're saying. Don't be thinking too much about the next question. An interviewer may ask you something. You want to be listening to it. The big secret, ask good questions. This will help you decide if you want to work there, and it will show you you're intelligent. The bigger secret, ask the same question to everyone you meet when it's applicable. Different people, same department, ask the same question. There is nothing more of a turnoff than when somebody meets with you and they don't have a question. They say, well, all my questions have pretty much been answered. Why wouldn't you want to hear the question or the answers from people, especially high on the food chain and low on the food chain, how they feel about certain things? I get asked all the time. People will say, tell me about why you decided to start this company. Rarely do I get asked, what are the traits I look at when I promote people? Why someone cares more about why I started the company than what I look at when we promote people is beyond me. I started the company 17 years ago. So there's questions that really make the interviewer question what your insight is, what your thought process is. You've got to be thorough, and you can't be afraid to ask questions. Relationships. Build new ones. Apparently these two ladies don't know each other. Attend local professional events. Take a class. Find career role models. Right? This is basic stuff. I'm telling you, if you're not taking some sort of class, some sort of networking event, if you're not doing these things, you are behind. You are the equivalent to your kid or your niece or your nephew or somebody in high school needing help and failing a class and not going into the teacher before class and asking for help. You would say, you are silly. You are going to fail. You're not helping yourself. You need to get outside of your work. It may take time. Remember, you don't have to travel. You don't have to buy yourself new TVs and new cars. You have to work or you can't afford to live. This is the one thing we need to do, especially if you're on this call. We need to work. So you have to invest beyond the hours of the day. You have to. Find career role models. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. Because what one person's brain capacity is and what their mentee's brain capacity are two different things. And somebody may be able to get done in a half hour. It would take somebody else 4 hours. And they're your role model, but you can't emulate everything they do. So find one, but find a couple, and look at what they've accomplished and really follow that. Existing networks. Don't take your friends for granted. Connect with people on LinkedIn. Go through people you went to college with, high school with, and connect with them on LinkedIn professionally. Touch base with them for no reason. Send them an email. Give them a call. People that you worked with in your first job and your second job. Find out where they are. Connect. Do it when you don't need them. Because when you do need them, it's transparent that you're just coming looking for something. And when someone asks you for something, if you can help, do it. Again, former coworkers, reach out to old classmates, people that you didn't think. I mean, for crying out loud, look at Facebook right now. People have all these Facebook friends that they weren't even friends with when they were in high school and college. But you reconnect electronically. Do it for your career. Be proactive. But then have a reason. Have a reason. What's next? Feel free to contact one of our recruiters, careers@LaSalleNetwork.com, and you can download the materials from our website, LaSalleNetwork.com. Again, #LandTheJob. Thank you for tuning into our webinar. I'll hand it over to Jessica to wrap up.
Great. Thank you, Tom. We have a couple of questions from listeners. The first question is work-life balance no longer important?
Now, I think balance is the wrong term. I think it's work-life enjoyment. And balance is something, it's perfectly balanced or imbalanced. Remember, the scales of justice are not balanced if you look at the statue or the picture. So what you have to look back is that over the course of a year, what does balance look like? Were you able to take a vacation? Were you able to get in shape? Were you able to read a book? Were you able to go into the theater? Did you see your friends? Were you at your kids' birthday parties? That's balance. If you're looking every single day for balance, I think you're going to be unhappy. And the advice I would give you is to be very introspective. And I would say, if you had an elderly parent or a baby, and your babysitter came to you and asked you about work-life balance every single day, and you needed them to stay extra because you were tied up at work or you had an event you had to go to or you were going out of town, and they came to you and said, I didn't get work-life balance today, I need to leave at 5, you would be infuriated. They can't help me out this time. Every single day they're asking about it. So I think to have some empathy for the employer and to have perspective that balance is measured over a long period of time.
Great. Thank you, Tom. We have a couple more. One listener wants to know, what's the best thing to do for their job search? Of all of these things that you talked about today, what's the number one thing if they were to do it right now?
I would have to say your resume. Make it perfect. Make sure there's no typos. Send it to everybody in different formats, different domains, to make sure that it comes out when the people open it correctly. Without a perfect resume, at least grammatically, you have nothing. The second thing is, it's something beyond this. It's stability. Stay at a job for a period of years. Take one that you like and stick with it. Fight through the tough times, because nothing is more marketable than a stable resume.
Great. Thank you. One listener wants to know, what is the toughest interview question that you ask candidates that they can prepare for?
Tell me the worst thing about managing you. Nobody's perfect. And I think that's probably one of the harder questions. And I don't let people get off the hook with, I'm a perfectionist. I think that's a BS answer. Or sometimes I work too hard. I put in too much time and I burn out. I think that's a terrible answer. I think when I hear that, I think you're a martyr. That's the worst thing about managing you. So, but to me, those are the things. And I guess it really depends. It's less about the hardness of the question I ask and more about the insecurities of the interviewee and how they take the questions. So I like to know where people are, and do they have siblings and how they interact with their siblings and relationships and things like that. It gives me some perspective on how people view life.
Okay, and then the last question that we have today is, what trends are you seeing in the economy? Is it really as good as people are saying? Is it really improving? Is there more contract work, more permanent work? What are we looking at?
No, I'd say you can't always believe what you read or see on television. However, unemployment's dropped, and gas prices are down, and the stock market's up, and housing has come back. So sometimes you have to just look at things at face value. And just because no one's bending over backwards to give you a 15% increase to leave your current job doesn't mean that the economy's bad. And just because you're unhappy in your job and you'd like a new job paying more money doesn't mean the economy's bad. And sometimes you just have to look in the mirror and say, am I as good at this job as other people are? And maybe you are and maybe you aren't. But I believe that overall, the economy's in a pretty decent place. Is it 2005 or 2006? No, it's not. But is this where it's going to be for a while? I do. And I think it's a heck of a lot better than it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So thank you guys very much for I guess there's one more question, and then I got to run.
Yes. A listener wants to know, she works in a neglectful environment, but it is a newer position for her, and she sees opportunity for growth with the company. It's a fairly large company, but she's worried that she can't get where she needs to go because she's underutilized. What do you suggest?
Well, I think that's an interesting one. So the first question is to ask back is, we don't know how long you've been in the job. If it's a newly created position, which you alluded to, then you got to give it some time, and you've got to really get there early, stay late, ask your boss if there's other things you can do at the end of the day. Get it, make sure that your area looks great. If you're underutilized, then you got to be doing all the things that you have on your plate exceptionally well. There's nothing worse for a manager than hearing that somebody doesn't have enough to do, but the stuff that they have to do isn't getting done timely and perfectly. There's no excuse. So I think those are the initial steps. And then after you have a track record, it depends on the job. It might be 6 months, might be a year, but you've got stability. And quite frankly, a lot of people feel neglected, and sometimes it's simply talking about what you need to have happen to not feel that way. In a large company or a small company, there's so many things going on, and managers don't always have the know-how or the attention to focus on it. So sometimes you need to wave the white flag and ask not to give up, but to ask for help. So, okay, I've got to run, but thank you all for tuning in, and I appreciate your attendance.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tom. We will be sending out a recorded version of the webinar to everyone who attended later this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks so much.